Hey everybody, Bearded Rogue here, and I'm going to try something different today. I'm playing around with a design that I'm calling Elements 2.0. It's sort of based on my original Elements game with a lot of mechanical changes. The theme is the same, a lot of the names of things are the same, but the overall mechanisms inside the game have changed. So this is the basic board. Obviously, I'm just reusing the original element cards from the original version of the game. Half cards or even square cards would be better for this setup because this kind of takes up a lot of space. But basically, it's become something of a worker placement game that's kind of like those old school light puzzles, which you may or may not remember. So what I mean by that is in a two-player game, each player would have 4 workers. And I'm just using these chits right here as a example of workers. And basically, on your turn, you would place one of your workers into the intersection of 4 cards, like so. Okay? Then, you would activate that intersection. And when you activate it, all of the cards in this intersection will flip, and you'll gain the resources depicted on those cards. With a slight difference in that if you activate 2 opposing resources, you would instead get Void in this case. In the original game, Aether was provided for things like this, but I'm right now testing using Void. So in this case, the person is activating air, earth, fire, and water. So all 4 of those opposed, so they would get 2 Void for their placement, and then all of these would flip. Now, the second player would get a chance to go. And they could go all sorts of places. For example, if they went here, they could get 2 fire and 2 air. Or they could get 2 water and 2 air. Looking at the formulas, which I'm sure that you can't read out here. Let me grab one that's a little varied. This guy right here. See if that'll come into focus. This is Gnome, and he's earth, air, fire, water. He needs 5 elements. And then he has a one-time use ability that'll let you gain an earth for using him. Basically, all of the formulas now are one-time use, and they're effectively just victory points at the end of the game. I haven't determined exactly what the end condition of the game is yet. Still working through just the basics of things, but basically, if player 2 went there, they would then get 2 fire and 2 air. So we'll go ahead and give them 2 fire and 2 air. And then all of these will flip. And then, in this case, the way that the turns are going to work is player 1 gets 1 placement, player 2 gets 2 placements, then player 1 gets 2 placements, then the final player gets the final placement is the way I'm working it right now. So player 2 would get to go again. So in this case, they've got fire and air. So this bottle lightning looks really good. However, they need 2 more fire for that, so that's probably not going to happen. So let's see, where are they going to go? There's 4 air and a water. They've got 2 air. Can they get more air and water? They can't here. They can get 2 water and 2 earth here, which isn't bad. And again, this board was just set up at the beginning. I don't know if I want it to end up being randomized or exactly what going forward, but that's something that I'm looking at here. But let's say they don't really have a great spot. This one needs air, fire, and water, Gnome. So they're going to go here, and they're going to go ahead and get the 2 earth and the 2 water. And so now they have 2 of each element type. If you can see here, so that placement, and they flip all of these. So now they can complete this Gnome. So they go ahead and turn in their 2 earth, 1 air, 1 fire, 1 water, and they get this Gnome, and that's effectively 1 victory point towards them winning kind of thing. And then it'll be replaced again. Right now, I'm having 3 more than the number of players out here in the row for things that you can complete. Now the first player would get to place 2 in a row. So here they could get a void and 2 water. Most of the other places are set up so that they're kind of very void heavy. Like here would be 2 air and a void. But ultimately, right now, all of the elements are the same. So it's air and earth always. Probably should make it so that since there are 16 cards, there's 1 of each. So there's 1 air with an earth on the back, 1 air with a fire, 1 air with a water. I don't know that double-sided ones are a good idea, but I don't know. We'll see how that all mixes out. But this is the basic idea. So you gain your resources through the worker placement portion of things. You complete your formulas. You trigger your formulas to do different things, like get additional void, or gain aether, which are wild, or flip element cards out here, so you can use this to flip one out of sequence, or the use for void. Now you can convert void to aether, or you can, where's the other one? Place void on an element card. So when you do that, you would put void on it, and you would be able to ignore it. You would instead get the void that's on it. So if I really wanted to get some of this stuff that would be aetherized, like here, say I really want 2 air and a fire, I could put this on the water, so the fire and water wouldn't turn into void. I would instead get this void, 1 fire, and then 2 air. So you can either block things from people, like I could put this here and you'll only get 1 earth for placing there instead of 2 earth, or I can use it to block things that way. That may end up coming off of the formula cards. I don't know exactly how the formula cards are going to work, but this is the very early stages of this prototype. Regardless, the basic thing that I wanted to do was mess around with this and see what I could figure out. But this is the extreme early stages of this game. I don't know what the win condition is. I don't know exactly how everything is going to work, but I wanted to take this idea that I had that seemed to fit the theme that I already had for my existing Elements title and play around with it for a bit to see how it went. So that's kind of what I'm messing around with Elements 2.0, just as an FYI. The abilities on the cards might change. You may end up just being able to place void. All of the individual cards on the board may change. There may be more or fewer workers. Placement order of the workers may change. If you're a designer, all of that stuff is kind of duh to you when you're at something this early as far as building. And it may be too many resources. In the old version of the game, roughly every round of the game, you ended up with either 2 or 3 resources. And in this game, in this version, it seems that you can end up with up to 4, sometimes depending on how things go. I don't know whether that's good or not, but we'll mess around with it. Right now, my idea is that 2 players would have 4 workers each, 3 players would have 3 workers each, 4 players would have 2 workers each. So you end up not filling in all of the spots, no matter what. So if all of these workers were out on the board, there would still be 1 left every round, and that would kind of carry. If there were 3 players with 3, we could flip, say, these 3, and we still have the 1 hole. That's kind of the idea of it, is to make sure that there's some things that don't ever get flipped in a round, but that's just kind of what I'm playing with right now. I expect that I'll do some more solo mucking about with it to figure out how it looks, and then I'll eventually bring it to a game night with other designers and playtesters, and we'll futz around with it some more. But that's the basic idea behind Elements 2.0. Let me know if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future. I know the glare is a little painful from the sleeves and the table. I probably need to get some sort of a mat to lay down underneath all this stuff, but it's the first time, so just like the iterations on the game, we'll get better as each iteration goes on. So let me know if you'd like to see any more content like this in the future, or if you just want to see more of what I'm messing around with my more developed games, rather than one that's so early on in its development process. But that's it for today. Bearded Rogue, out.